Hello, welcome to another economics video. Today we're going to go over a little bit about tariffs and how it affects world trade. And so first, you can see a pretty basic supply and demand chart. This is their supply curve, and this is for our domestic supplier, and this is our demand curve. As you can see, the equilibrium point is about 5 units demanded, and there's about 5 units supplied. And we can see that, I'm not going to draw it out because we have a lot of things to draw, but if you were to draw a little line up here, this would be our consumer surplus and this would be our producer surplus down here. And so you can see that they're about equal, the surpluses are equal, and then both of these lines, both of these triangles together would be our total surplus. And so once again, the consumer surplus is above the price line, but above equilibrium as well. And then our supplier surplus is below equilibrium, but above the price. And so that's our little supply and demand curve if there was no world trade. But let's say that there was another supplier, a foreign supplier that comes in, and we'll say that this is their price, how much they can make it for. So let's say that's 3, and then we'll draw that to about 7 there. And so we're gonna label that as, sorry, I don't know if you guys could see that, but as a foreign supplier supply curve. And so as you can see, obviously, let's say that people have no preference between the two. They're just gonna go for the one for the cheaper. And so as you can see, the first couple of units are gonna be sold by our domestic supplier because they have a lower price, and so they can offer a lower price. But then our foreign supplier is actually going to be producing the rest from 2 to 7, and so they're going to be making about 5. And so our equilibrium point is going to move from about 5 to about 7 because they can produce it at a lower point, and so they're going to be producing more at a lower price. And so you can see that our new, so I'll label this as again. So our domestic supplier is going to be providing the first 2 units, and then our foreign supplier is going to be providing the next 5 units. And so in total, there were 5 being supplied before, being bought, but now there are going to be 7 being bought. And let's see how that has changed our surplus areas. And so we know that the definition of consumer surplus is above the price point, but below the demand. And so here we can see how our supply has greatly increased, but the producer surplus has decreased. And so we can kind of see they've almost traded off a little bit. This is our new producer surplus, and this whole area right here is our new consumer surplus. And now let's say that our domestic supplier isn't too happy, and so they go to the local government and they say, hey, we actually want a tariff imposed on our foreign supplier. So let's say the tariff goes up here, and this is their new this is their new price. And so this is still 5, this is still their supply curve. And so we can see how the equilibrium point moves back up. We'll call that 6, and we'll call this one 4. And so we can see that how price has actually increased. So here's our equilibrium point. They're going to be providing 6 units at a price of 4. And what else? So we can see our new supply, our consumer surplus is actually decreased because it used to be this whole area, but now it's just this area. Now we can label it because this is going to be consumer surplus. It's this whole area here, and then our producer surplus is going to be producer surplus is under this line, all this and this triangle. But you'll notice that this area was cut out. So this area is going to be our tariff area. And so that's just money that was straight lost because a tariff was imposed on our foreign supplier, and so they had to pay an extra dollar on every unit that they sold, and in turn that raises prices. And so the tariff goes to the government, but then you'll also, well, I should have drawn that more like that, sorry. So this is our tariff, but then you'll also notice these little triangles here, and that's deadweight loss, because you can see that there was an extra consumer in the market who at a price of 3 they were willing to buy, but at a price of 4 they were pushed out and they didn't value the product as much. And so you can see that not only is there a tariff that reduces consumer surplus, but there's also deadweight loss. And so the domestic suppliers can be happier because they're able to have a little bit more surplus. The consumer is going to cut into the consumer surplus, and then this is going to be bad. This is going to be lost because the government is going to get that. And so overall, you're still better off having foreign suppliers with a tariff than having no international trade at all. But the ideal for consumers, at least, is to have a foreign supplier in the market as well with no tariff, because then you're going to be maximizing consumer surplus, and there's not going to be any deadweight loss, and there's not going to be, as some people would say, unnecessary money going to the government. And and there's also, I need to explain what a tariff is quickly. A tariff is just is a tax on imports. And so our foreign supplier is importing products to the domestic country, and so the government is taxing them on that. But hope you learned something, and take it easy.